Happy New Year 2022. There we are, starting a new year. What I will tell you about today for this new year is something related indeed to one specific new year, the new year of 1957, as you will see. But I didn't know when, as a teenager, after my family came back from Africa to live permanently in France, near Paris, I have no idea how and why, but my parents had in our home an album of photos. This album of photos was called The Family of Man. And it is a kind of catalogue, but I wouldn't call it like that because catalogue sounds like something bureaucratic, just a list. But in that case, it is the photos themselves, page after page, from a big, huge photographic exhibition by the same name, The Family of Man, which had happened from 1955 on, started by somebody from Luxembourg in Europe, but with a big participation from the United States and Europe. It was a collection of, a selection rather, of more than 500 photographs from 68 countries. So many photographers had been asked to submit their work for preparing that exhibition. And I was perhaps 16, 17, when I remember noticing this album of photos, which was lying in the living room in our apartment, in one of the buildings of the whole area. And I was absolutely fascinated by the photos in this book. The wonderful thing is that after having to come back from the seaside on Auroville beach several years back, and then to shift to luminosity from where I am making now those videos, I had so much stuff, given the kind of work I do. I need to keep with me a considerable amount of books and documents and archive papers about the work, not only of myself, but also of collaborators who have been. Anyway, I had quite a lot to bring into the small space of this office very quickly, because some other people already needed the accommodation I was freeing in the temporary space where I had been after coming away from the seaside. So I knew I had still that so precious to be documented somewhere. And since 2 days, I was feeling I had to find it again because I had to present it to you. But I was not sure at all if I could find it in time. And this morning, I found again my old friend. And immediately I started living through it again. So you see, this is extremely old. So normally it has a soft cover, and it has been bound again to kind of preserve it as much as possible. And I always treat my things with a lot of care. So it's all in black and white. And the person who started the huge project of that exhibition, as the title of it, I hope suggests enough. His aim was to show through photographs, very living photographs, that actually human beings everywhere are just one family whose life is pretty much the same in its preoccupations, in its needs, in its joys, in its pains, in its hopes. The world was just coming out of the Second World War, and everybody was feeling already the tensions of now that there was a nuclear threat for the first time, at least in our modern civilization. It was a Cold War time. And people were anxious about the possibility of a third world war, which would be even more horrible. So you see, when I opened that book this morning again, there were 2 or 3 photos, particularly, which I remembered so vividly. But just passing by, you see, this is pretty much like near the place where my grandmother was living in Paris. And this is, voilà, so this also looks pretty much like France. And it starts with photos of people falling in love, kissing each other sweetly. Voilà. So you have them. And you see, at that time, besides a little bit of France itself, which I knew from previous times when, with my parents, we had visited France, but not to stay permanently. I knew only Africa, which many people in France don't even know. But so at least I had wider horizons in my experience. And let's say many people in France, at least at that time, would have had. But I had no idea of Asian civilizations, of the Japanese culture, the Chinese culture, the Korean people, the Cambodian people, the Indian people from India. I knew a bit more about the Red Indians, as we used to say at that time, the first Americans. But you see, for me to see a photo like this one of something like a marriage in Japan was a stunning new perception of the world. Also, besides hearing and loving the sound of the voice of the muezzin calling people to prayer in the mosque, I had no idea what were the rights of the marriage, for example, between Muslim people, things like that. So, I mean, my experience of life in other forms than what I knew through my own family life was very, very limited. So I was exposed for the first time to photos of life in other parts of the world besides France and Africa. And particularly the Asian cultures were absolutely new to me. So you see, after the time of becoming husband and wife, the time for the baby to join is being shown in the pictures. And you see, I had at that time, this was 1955, you see, and at that time you didn't have pictures all over the place like we have now. Google search, you know, it shows you any number of pictures of anything. So for me also, you see, I think this was my first image of how babies are when they are just born, when they are being born, actually. So, and some beautiful shots, which look almost like paintings. And the love and tenderness. And you see, you have the same thing, and they're all clients. So, and then the child grows, the mama, the small family around the child. And there were images again of the Africa I knew at least a little. But even America was something, you see, which was in a way quite different from France. And the way of dressing, although it's to other countries, you see, elsewhere in the world, it's all the Western world. Still, I knew immediately these were not French boys, things like that. So, on the contrary, I could recognize immediately a scene from France itself. And I remembered particularly this shot of a fun scene. You see, fun is such an important experience in our human life. So I remembered that the young girl, you see, having fun, showing off in front of her slightly younger companions, you see, pretending to be already a young woman. Voila. So I laughed this morning when I found it again, exactly as I remembered. So, and I remembered some other photos for their incredible beauty, the artistic quality, the visual art of photography, and capturing, in that case, the visual beauty of some cultures in the world. I remember that when I saw this young boy, you see, in a pose which for him, in his culture, was so natural. But for me, was like the epitome of beauty, of gracefulness. I remember that boy. This morning I was happy to meet him again. Then you had some photos showing the eruption of violence, even between kids, etc. I must tell you that my life, for some reason, had been somehow protected. I had never witnessed any scenes of violence myself. Not only I had never been subjected to violence, but I think I must have told you, for some reason, it seems it was really not good for me to see such things when I was too young. And so my soul and the divine managed to protect me and keep me a kind of protective bubble. So that only when I was that age, you see, about 16, 17, through that book again, you see, after some bright photos of happy daddies with their sons and daughters. It's so beautiful, everything inside, you see, a family here and there. And again, one can see it is America. This has nothing to do with France, for example. Oh. And also, of course, this is the 50s, let's say. And so even the way of dressing has evolved quite a lot in Europe, which is what I know the most. But then later on in the book, you had also ultra-urban violence and a lot of work also, because human life is pretty much about work. Now, you must work to eat, to survive. And again, with beautiful photos from everywhere in the world, that fact was made obvious. There was almost no captions, nothing written accompanying the photos. The photos themselves were so eloquent in what they were showing. In such a vivid manner, you would get the feel of what was being shown. So, things I had known in Africa. Well, it's hard to, but people, at least at that time, still had the simplicity. Some photos are very small, and you need really to be close to the page to see exactly what is going on in that small picture. And some others are full page visual art piece. Beautiful. I remembered also, I don't know why, probably simply the serenity of the scene, that young girl playing the flute somewhere. But then in that book, there were clearly also some horrible things happening out there in the world, which I was not aware of at all. And so interspersed is in chunks between more pleasant things to laugh with and to love with, to warm up to. You had some very disquieting scenes showing that not is well in our world. And actually, this is how I really started becoming aware that humanity was not there on Earth. And I started becoming acutely aware of the disharmonies, and even worse, that exist between human beings. So that book has been an eye-opener for me, and a consciousness opener as well. And this is why it remained in my own awareness even years later. When I arrived in Auroville, of course, I had not taken with me that album of photos, although I really cherished it from my parents' home. But I was not actively thinking of it anymore. You see, it had sunk deep down in the very subconscious of my being, having done its work. And then when I became so curious about who the mother was and how she explained spirituality to not only the ashramites, the adult people really doing the yoga at the ashram as disciples, but also how in her French class, she was actually using the French class to speak with the small kids studying, I mean, small kids from outside that their parents had sent to do their studies under the guidance of the mother at the ashram school. So mother in French was explaining quite a lot of things. And they have become known as the questions and answers. And here is a big edition in English of it. And this it has been published later as a volume per year, kind of. And so after starting from 51, when I reached the year 1957 of questions and answers, and it started with January 2, 1957. Mother starts with reading to the children. I was delighted. Some quotes by Auroville, which I had discovered in the meantime, and I was so happy to find them there, commented by Mother herself. But then after speaking of that with the kids, the mother started telling this. So I'm going to tell you something. One day, I don't know when exactly, suddenly, I remembered that I had to give a message for the year, for the new year. Generally, these messages reveal what is going to happen during the year. And as I had nothing to say, for certain reasons, I asked myself, or rather asked if I could not receive a clear indication of what had to be said. I asked exactly this. What was the best state in the world, and the thing which could help men, or that state of consciousness, to draw a little closer to the truth. What was the best state? A few hours later, I had in my hands a booklet which had come from America, a sort of a review of a photographic exhibition entitled The Family of Man. What? I couldn't believe what I read. Here was my album of cherished photos of when I was a teenager. Mother had something to do with it. So I kept on reading. There were quotations in the booklet and the reproduction of many photographs classified by subjects, and all for the purpose of trying to awaken the true sense of fraternity in men. The whole thing represented an effort, immense, pathetic, to prevent a probable war. The quotations had been chosen by a woman reporter who had come here and whom I had seen. And so all this had come, expressing really touchingly the best human will which could manifest on earth at present. This is in 57. From the collective point of view, I am not saying there are no individuals who have risen much higher and understand much better, but these are individual cases and not a collective attempt to do something for humanity. I was really touched. And something Mother was explaining further, that she wanted, when she had that brochure in her hands, and she was so touched by it, she could see that no solution to the misery of the situation on earth was given, actually. That the whole inspiration behind the exhibition and the brochure made from it, etc., which was still circulating and which was such a success that this book is still in print. It never stopped being in print. It had a tremendous success. It went all over the world, almost everywhere. And the places, the countries where it didn't go was places like China and Spain also. I mean, the places where dictators, etc., you see, were in power. And so it was not really the right place where to put these things. It would not have been well received at all. So the mother contemplated the possibility that this exhibition perhaps could come one day to the ashram, to Pondicherry, at the ashram, and that from her wisdom and vision, she could provide this exhibition. So truly satisfying outcome, which is being prepared nowadays by evolution, but which people in Christianity which was the basic inspiration behind the whole exhibition, couldn't see far enough in the future to see what was next and how it could give at last the true solution to all the problems we have now in the world. So, and this is how something became formulated in herself. And this is important for what I am myself trying to point out through these little videos of mine. I didn't know at that time but there was also that connection, that relevance, let's say. I think I remember the mother was saying, it is not through a crucified body, but through a glorified body that the world is going to be saved. That means the changes in matter itself, that the supramental consciousness force is now bringing, whether people are aware yet of it or not, into matter. And that means potentially, little by little, in our bodies. So I was extremely moved to find out that without my knowledge, when I was a teenager, I had in my hands, and I cherished so much, this document, which the mother herself had something to do with. And years later, I was just finding out this incredible coincidence, you would say. And now you understand why I am bringing it up today. Because humanity at large has become even more acutely aware of the need to unite. And even in Auroville itself, this is pretty much what we have to find a way to achieve, human unity. So you see, unity for the mental perception of things is seen as having to do with uniformity. The mind always tries to uniformize everything and believes that it is finding the true unity, when on the contrary, what needs to be done is to find the unity through harmonizing the differences. It has to be a unity through diversity itself. It is a kind of teamwork. When we want to do teamwork, we don't need people who are all the same, with the same qualities, talents, and capacities. We need different people to do different aspects of the job that needs to be done. So simple. Same thing in an orchestra. You need different types of musicians and of musical instruments. And the more diversified the composition of the orchestra is, the more magnificent and richer the music you can produce will be. So this is what even our mind at some point must start seeing and implementing in the way we relate to the others, instead of being shot constantly and repelled by the differences. We have to see in which way they complement the way we are, and in which way the contribution of those other people so different from us are complementing, balancing our own contributions. It's not complicated at all. We can see that at work in so many things that we do, and even in a beehive or in the world of ants, the principle of teamwork is the same. And we don't need to go far at all to see a wonderful example of teamwork. It's within our own body. Any organism is teamwork. With the different elements working together to produce different results that are all needed at different times for different situations, etc. So we have examples of what we must learn to do ourselves in our relationships to other human beings and whatever else exists on this planet and the planet itself. We have to collaborate. So simple. But we are so much used to the contrary. Our immediate reactions are negative. So this is what must change. And you see, when we start seeing people who are different, not anymore like enemies, but as complement in the whole truth. You see, truth is not one thing extracted from many, and which is the only one true, and all the rest is false and wrong and to be eliminated and rejected. It's not at all like that. And as long as we have, as our mind has that conception of the truth, we will go on warring for whatever reason. When actually the real truth, the supramental truth, is a total truth. The real truth is a totality, the mother was explaining, where all those partial, incomplete truths that we all seize upon, believe in, and imagine that they are, each of them, the truth. So this is a change of consciousness, a major change of consciousness, which must happen more and more in each of us if we want peace on earth. So yesterday, during the night, usually on every last day of the year, 31st December, I love to go to the pavilion of Tibetan culture in Auroville. You know that the whole area of Auroville, the mother explained, has to be for erecting pavilions of most of the various cultures of the world, so that on that common ground, they can come together not as nationalities and nationalisms that always want to dominate each other and to rule each other and to eliminate each other, but again, as expressions, various expressions of the total truth. Each culture having a connection, a special connection with a certain aspect of that total truth and manifesting it spontaneously in the world. So this is what the author called the cultural zone. The international zone. The cultural zone is more for the new culture, which is starting to manifest from Auroville itself for the future. But all those roots that all of us are coming from, all these so diverse cultures of the world, in their soul quality, each of them, they must be preserved and be present there to contact each other in that different context, where they can start feeling that they too are part of that whole, which is being manifested on earth. So the Tibetan pavilion at the end of every year is open for a special night of simply beautiful Tibetan meditation music, and the whole building, which is built in the really in the traditional temple, Tibetan temple way. We have had the Dalai Lama himself connected with the foundation, and then the inauguration of this specific pavilion. For me personally, that evening and sometimes full night at the Tibetan pavilion on that last evening of the year has become the symbol of my call to the divine for the protection and preservation of all those ancient cultures which are so much under threat of total disappearance, as languages, as cultures, as wisdom, as art. So yesterday, nothing could happen there because of the COVID-related restrictions to gatherings. Even this one is not at all a noisy one or anything. It could not happen as it would have had normally. So I stayed at home, but linking myself inwardly in the same way, not only to that specific pavilion itself, which I know very well and can imagine myself in without problem, but also relating inwardly to so many other cultures threatened with extinction. This is what humanity must understand. We just have to stop doing that to each other. That each each culture, each country, each civilization, as long as it is in power, has its own empire, exterminates or enslaves the others, or sends them out to faraway territories. And then centuries or millennia later, that same civilization, you see, has come out of power. Another big wave of power comes into the world in the form of another culture, another civilization. And the same thing happens again and again, all over. When shall we stop? So in the same way as for Christmas, I was happy to tell you about that film. Lovely film, Joyeux Noël, Merry Christmas, in a previous video. This time, I am presenting to you not exactly a film, but this brochure, this album of photos, a family of mine. And this is, for me, the New Year resolution, which I would be so happy if my audience, as well English speaking or French speaking, would really become deeply aware that enough is enough. Humanity needs peace. This very minute, so many atrocities are happening still, on so many points of our globe. And even within Auroville, there have been this crisis, which we are trying to resolve, but which showed that the seeds of the same problems are still here too. So probably I will put in the description to that video the formulation of the specific resolution which I propose to all of you, like I will probably propose it to my sisters and brothers in Auroville, I mean all Aurovillians of goodwill. So you will see exactly how I formulated it. But having done that whole big compilation of 500 pages total, I know so well the advice that Mother gave, which is so simple. She said, when you go to meetings to decide about something, you have to go to the meeting with a wish to find, together with the others, that ideal solution, which will make everybody happy. Instead of what is happening usually is that everybody is going to meetings simply with a will to enforce upon others as much as they can their own personal point of view. So this is something so simple. Maybe we just need to train ourselves to do that. Every time we will meet somebody, every time we happen to meet somebody, we remember, I'm not here to defend my point of view, not listen at all to what the other person is saying. There's a part of truth also in what the other person is saying. And if I don't listen to the part of truth coming from that other person, then my part of truth is not complete or is not balanced and will not bring harmony. So we have to, I propose for this year as a resolution, New Year resolution, to train ourselves, each of us, to take and keep that attitude when we speak with other people, trying to decide on something. And on top of it, the mother explained, if we take the habit of doing that, of listening really to the part of truth, which is also contained in what other people are saying, and including that part of truth in the decision in the end, so that it is as harmonious and balanced and full as possible. This has another advantage. Our mind also will become much wider, much vaster, and much closer to the supramental way of perceiving things. So this is what I would like to propose to you as a resolution for this new year, 2022. I hope in the description of this video, I'll be able to put things down clearly enough. But even listening to what I have explained in the video itself, I hope you can remember quite simply what that resolution is. Okay, so I wish you a wonderful new year with more and more peace within yourself and with everyone around you as you learn how to do it right, with kindness, with gentleness, with mutual understanding. Things go smoothly, simple. Re-education. We are kids. If we want to develop in a better way, we have to re-educate ourselves and start doing things the right way, which will give the good results that we want to see within ourselves and on the whole planet. Thank you for your attention. All my best wishes for all of you and for our whole planet. Om